Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of the Second Age Show. My name is Strider, and here with me we have Cathy. Hello.
Hi.
And we have Harry. Hello, sir.
Hello.
How's it going? All good?
Good.
Yeah. Well, we have some really interesting news to discuss tonight. So, you know what? Without further ado, let's just get right into it. So, the first bit of news for tonight is that the original form Sauron character has been on the Eregion sets and has shared scenes with Celebrimbor, played by Charles Edwards. Harry, how are we feeling about this?
Well, I guess the first thing people will say is this has to be Annatar, doesn't it? Because, of course, Celebrimbor, Eregion, original Sauron form, a different form from Halbrand. And I'm still on the camp that I don't think this is Annatar. But, of course, I'm not going to leave out the possibility it still could be. But I think something else we're going to see with Annatar earlier in the season. Because from what we understand, a lot, not saying all, but a lot of the OG Sauron scenes is in the more later episodes. So maybe potentially after the rings are forged. But yeah, this is okay. Very interesting because people wanted to know where OG Sauron is based. Like, is he in Mordor most of the season? And we're not saying he isn't in Mordor, but we know that he has spent a majority of his filming on the Elven sets. So again, first instance is Annatar, because that's what makes the most sense, right? Like, come on, like a Sauron form with Celebrimbor, another important thing, because does this maybe show how much, involved he is going to be with Sauron compared to season 1, when we had Sauron a lot with Galadriel and the Númenóreans. But time will tell, of course. But yeah, very interesting that, and for some people, very reassuring that we are finally seeing Sauron on the Eregion sets for maybe a longer period of time, which people wanted, and some still surprised because, it may or may not be the Annatar form. So yeah, that's my take on it.
All right. Thank you very much for that. So, Cathy, how do you see this bit of news and everything that Harry just shared with us?
Well, I agree with Harry because we have the information that the original form appears in later episodes. So it doesn't seem that he is going to be a form that works on making the rings. So that's why I think that maybe those scenes could be, like when the reveal is made that, whoever was working on the rings, is actually Sauron, and he appears in his original form, which we know that is angelic. So they're obviously going to notice that, it's not a human, it's not an elf, it's like real Sauron. So I agree with that. And as for Annatar, who is like such a big question in fandom, I kind of distinguish two things. One is Annatar as a figure who works on the rings with elves and I think dwarves as well, but I'm not sure. Sorry, I'm not that versed in lore like you two. And another thing is his name. So, in my opinion, if there is a figure who does what Annatar does, so makes rings with, characters who are supposed to, work on the rings, but let's say isn't called that name. In my opinion, that's the same character. It doesn't have to be called that name, right? And so far we haven't heard that anyone was called that name, but we'll see. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you two made a lot of interesting points. I would just like to maybe just further discuss what is the original Sauron form, because form means body, and Maya beings and the Valar, they do not need body. They just have they just use the bodies when they're interacting with the children of Iluvatar, which are the elves and the men, and of course we have Owl's children which are the dwarves. So I wonder if we might get like a flashback, and then they show us, okay, this is the form that Sauron had in Valinor. But the question is also again, like, it's not specifically said at which point did Sauron start serving Morgoth, because for people who have read the Silmarillion, those wars between Morgoth and the rest of the Valar, they started very early, basically, right while Arda was being formed, while the land was all in some weird shape. The oceans were restless before everything was shaped into the world that we know later on. Morgoth was already in war. So the question here is, do they, this original form, will they say that Sauron was not with Morgoth all the way until elves came to Valinor, which is like way after those first original primordial wars? So will they say that, hey, Sauron was in Valinor, and then at some point, it kind of doesn't make sense, but it's interesting because they say this original form. So I'm just wondering, will we see some interesting backstory there that they will have to figure out on their own? Like, it's not said. It is not said anywhere specifically when. But yeah. Anyway, I think we can throw into this the next bit of news. So Harry, do you want to share it with us?
Yep.
Also, sorry, and everybody else who's listening to this, please share your theories. What do you think? What is this original form of Sauron? Yeah, Harry?
Yeah, that'd be very interesting. Yep. And make sure to like, subscribe as well. We don't say that enough, apparently. So we need to do that more.
Indeed.
Like and subscribe. Okay, next one. The original form Sauron character has also shared scenes with Galadriel, Celeborn, Elrond, and Selena Lowe's elven character. So it seems like this character has interacted with quite a few people. What do you think?
Well, depends. I mean, like, he may interact with them separately, or it may be a big reveal event that, like, they all witness. So it's really hard to say, like, which is it? Like, is he going to, like, have separate scenes with, like, all these, like, 4 or 5 characters, or they're going to be in the same scene with he, like, appears and, like, say something, maybe not to reveal, or maybe, like, he shows up, like, with the army or something, like, it's he appears with these actors, but, like, how that is going to be executed, that's a mystery.
Yeah, I think the way this type of exclusives usually panned out in season 1, and the way it seems it will pan out in season 2 most of the time, this means that I can see all of these people being at least in 1 or 2 scenes together, or maybe because we are not completely sure what Selena Lowe's character will be doing, but I think it's quite likely that it's like one huge massive scene, because Elrond probably won't be in a region for, I guess, probably at the earliest he shows up there at the 7th episode, maybe even in the 8th. We'll probably see him throughout the season, but I think that's when he shows up in Eragon. So to have all of these characters in one place, it's probably the culmination of the season, which makes sense then that it would be a lot of characters. Like you will get all the characters or most of the characters in one place to have this big ending to the season. So I think, yeah, that's my take. I think it's quite likely that all of these, except maybe Selena Lowe's character, will probably share one big scene together, or several scenes. But yeah, we can expand on this a bit more. So the next bit of news is that the original form Sauron character has also been on the battle sets and in black and gold tinted black battle armor, which basically kind of confirms, at least to a degree, what I just said. So he will be there for the culmination of the season, and
Yep.
it makes sense that he will meet with a bunch of characters. But yeah, Harry, what do you think of this, and how cool does it sound? Black and gold tinted battle armor.
So with the show titled Rings of Power and which is basically another title and revolves around Sauron. One of the things people most want is seeing Sauron in armor, seeing him on a battle set, seeing him fighting. So the fact that we are going to be seeing this potentially is going to be awesome, and it'll be interesting to see if this is part of the culminating event. Maybe he reveals himself on the battle set, like, or maybe he leads. It'd be so cool seeing Sauron lead an army. That would be awesome. But I have a suspicion that it might not be that. But otherwise, that would be so awesome. But yeah, I think maybe it'd be interesting to think if he is fighting, which character would he face off to? That'd be a very thing I'll have to think on about. But yeah, that's why I'm initially quite excited. But yeah, the armor stuff sounds really cool. Black and gold tinted armor. Be interesting to see if it looks anything like the one we saw in the prologue in episode 1. It will be like that, but maybe without the helmet. Or maybe it's like he holds a helmet like this on one side, and he's just in this armor. But
The
I
classic
don't know.
Hollywood thing.
But yeah, no, yeah, that'll be very, very awesome. So yeah,
Cathy,
that's all.
what do you think of this armor?
I agree that it seems like there is a connection between these two scenes. That basically he shows up in his armor, and all these other characters were at that scene, like, so maybe like, oh, look at Sauron's armor, it's cooler than ours, or something like that, like, and I also noticing that they love gold this season. They even gave gold costume to a character named Silver Tree. So I'm not surprised that Sauron is wearing some gold on it. But speaking of armor, I just want to go back to the question about his original form. I think that they'll keep it simple, and that original form is really going to be just Sauron from Morgoth era that we've seen in the prologue, like in his original armor. So I think that, like that's really who original Sauron form is, like the one before Halbrand.
Fair enough. I think I think the Sauron we will see during the battle has to be basically, it's not confirmed, but it's like just logical to assume that this will be this 3 meters tall, gigantic figure of gigantic mountain of metal and strength. But Harry, you asked rhetorically a good question, a good rhetorical question. Will he fight, or what will he show up, or what will be his role there? So we can look at the books themselves. At some point in the Return of the King book, I think it's Gandalf talking with Pippin, but I might be wrong. He says that, or actually, it might be Denethor. I think it's Denethor. It was a good parallel between, yeah. So I think Denethor says that what Sauron will do is. So I think Pippin asks, "Will Sauron show up himself?" And he says, Denethor says that he does what every good king or whatever overlord does. He uses his generals and he moves them, around, pushes them in front, and he will not show up himself. That is until everything is done, everybody's conquered, and he can then just come over and gloat. So that's what the book says, and that is the role that Sauron does have. Just generally, overall, that's his presence. He fought, like, I think we know of 2 instances of him fighting someone. One, he fights Huan, the dog of Valinor, the Hound of Valinor, in the story of Beren and Luthien, when he transforms into the werewolf, and then he fights Elendil, and these are major spoilers for the show, but that's why you're here. He fights Elendil Gil-galad during the Battle of the Last Alliance. So, canonically speaking, I would not expect him to do much fighting. He might show up. Canonically speaking, I would expect him to show up just maybe basically to fight Celebrimbor or something like that. That could be very cool. The game Shadow of Mordor did a really cool scene, so if we saw something like that, that would be pretty cool. But again, this is the show Rings of Power, and they took a lot of liberties with Sauron, with Galadriel, with a lot of characters. So we might as well see Sauron doing a lot of fighting. So yeah, I just wanted to present those two different takes that will
Well,
probably
I
be
think that
one or the other.
I think that it makes sense for him to fight because lore is one thing, but on the show, Sauron is also Halbrand, and Halbrand is a fighter. You know, like he fought in season 1 in the Battle of Southlands, and we know that this season he is going to rally troops. You know, like so that also seems to like indicate that he's going to have a warrior role. So even though we think of these forms as separate, like there is Halbrand and there is original form, it's the same person. So if Halbrand fights, then, like original form should fight as well. Like I don't think that it's with him, it's like, oh, like I'm weak in my non-human form and can't fight. I can only fight as Halbrand, but I can't fight as original form. I don't think it's like that at all. So, yeah, I think he'll fight.
Well, I think we might see actually some character development from him because he was a wanderer. He's been around. Again, speaking strictly of the show Sauron, because for me, they are at least at this point, two very different characters compared to the books. Character development is a thing that we might expect from him as well. So I wouldn't be surprised if he did become this commander because that is who he is supposed to be. Sauron doesn't fight in front lines. As I said, like I could see him fight in my final stages of the Battle of Eregion, perhaps turning the tide, I guess. But I think most of the fighting will be done by Adar and maybe characters who are around Adar, because what else can they do? While Sauron has so much more importance. But yeah, I guess this is something we'll have to wait and see because they can go either way, and they can have arguments and maybe some cool story plot points that can go either way. But yeah, Harry, what's your take on this? And maybe you can also share the last exclusive as well.
Well, my take on this and in general around the fighting, well, I have a different one. It's like it'll be so cool to see Sauron with that big mace, like from the Peter Jackson movies, because yeah, it's just something I always associate with Sauron. So I do hope you get to see that. But again, that's a very off-topic point from what you guys are discussing. But to reel back in a bit, I'll get on. Yeah, I'll get on to the next scoop, which is exclusive. There will be a dramatic scene in the later episodes between original form Sauron, Celeborn, and Galadriel. And Cathy, I believe you have a theory for this. So I think it'd be cool to hear that first.
Actually, I don't have a theory. I know that fans have theory because it was discussed in two streams that Fellowship of Fans did when we answered fan theory questions. And I'll get to that later. First, I'll say what my take is, because it differs from that theory, but I think the theory is interesting to bring up. So first, what I think about this scene, I think it could go two ways. One is that we'll have Galadriel and Celeborn as a battle couple fighting Sauron. So we could get, back to back, like that battle pose, like
Yeah.
fighting together, Raylo in The Last Jedi. That's one thing that I think it's very possible, because Galadriel is warrior character, and Caliban is a warrior in lore. So and they would love to show, I guess, the married couple as a battle couple. That's one possibility. Another possibility is that Sauron would hurt one of them, Galadriel or Celeborn, and kind of, I have that image of Sleeping Beauty when Maleficent, kind of, removed her the cloak, and revealed Aurora lying on the floor, her long hair over her face, and I think the prince went no. So I'm thinking about a similar thing with Sauron, Celeborn on the floor, and Galadriel. Because if he wanted to hurt Galadriel, what better way than her Celeborn? So I think if we have something like that, it's more likely that he would hurt Celeborn than her Galadriel. So now, as for that fandom theory, we, our Fellowship of Fans, discussed it in two streams about fan theories. And what's very interesting is that it was discussed, one theory was discussed in two different videos with two different panels of debaters. And the theory is that Sauron is so deceptive and evil that he would take Celeborn's form and deceive Galadriel and everyone else. So what I found very interesting is that one panel in one video completely dismissed this, while the other panel in a different video said yeah, I mean, this makes sense, this is totally in line with mystery boxes, that we saw in season 1. So if, let's say, this second panel was right, that scene would be something like Celeborn switching into original form, or the other way around. I don't know. So yeah, that's what it is.
Very, very interesting. That of course that is a theory, but it is an interesting one. If in case it's maybe again another reveal scene, and it'll be what? But yeah, no, you actually detailed that very well. So yeah, I'm looking quite forward to seeing what it could be. Strider, do you have any thoughts on what this important scene? Cause we do understand this is when we get told about scenes, stuff like that we got told this was an important scene that was filmed. So go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think Cathy shared two pretty likely possibilities. So one is definitely that it could be a fighting scene, or it can be both in the end. It can be a combination of both. Yeah, Galadriel has been presented as a very fighter-like character. So seeing her fight with however Celeborn shows up, it's quite possible that the two of them might end up fighting together. It would be interesting to have that Maleficent reveal scene from under Sauron's cape or something. That'd be interesting to see. But yeah, I guess that is one definitely. That's one option for sure. But the other one also makes sense. Sauron is literally called Sauron the Deceiver. We know as a fact that he does change his shapes in order to manipulate people. He did that to a guy called Gorlim, a very unfortunate man during at some point during the Silmarillion, he pretended to be his dead wife. Well, that's the implication that maybe Sauron pretended to be her, but he might have as well. It's unclear. He either pretended to be her or created the illusion that she was there. But anyway, the thing is, it's canonical that Sauron does use appearances of other people to confuse his enemies or people that he wants to use. So if he did take Celeburn's shape in one way or another, or used maybe like an illusion of Celeburn's shape, perhaps in some way, that would make perfect sense. You know, it would fit with who Sauron is as a character, but how does all of this fit? That is a good question. It might end up being a combination of both. It might end up being something slightly different. I have no idea. I think I cannot wait to look at this show in like 5 or 6 years and look back and just like analyze the whole thing that they had planned here, because it's very interesting.
No,
that
for sure,
I can definitely say for like, yeah.
And I'm sure this is just a discussion that'll be ever evolving over the next weeks and months, and probably
also,
a lot
please,
of
folks, share your theories
Yeah.
in the chat while listening to us, please.
Yeah.
And again, because it seems like Rings of Power doesn't do too much as right now around the show, so I'm going to just be people discussing, speculating until they're dead. So yeah, interesting. Well, I think we've done a pretty decent job. I think good job, team.
Thank you.
Yeah, well done.
So yep, again, as Strider said, let us know what you think in the comments below, your thoughts, theories, opinions, and make sure to like, subscribe. Well, thank you,
Don't forget,
Strider.
we'll have an AMA after this.
We will have an AMA after this, and we will have a War Here in Wednesday episode out next Wednesday, or the Wednesday coming up as well. So yeah, looking forward to both of those.
Yeah, in that video, basically everything you want to know about that movie, tune in for that video, because we have a really good breakdown of all the key info about it. So please tune in.
For sure. Make sure to go check that out. Strider and the team go and discuss everything around that movie, which is unfortunately delayed, but you know, more time to discuss it and have more hype. That's the positive way to look at it. Well, thank you guys for watching. Really appreciate it. And I think until the next one, friends, goodbye.
Bye.